It's your Tuesday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day, another show. Hope you guys are having a good one out there as well. Good one coming up today. Phil Miller from the Star Tribune covers the Twins. Joins me here in a little bit. Bunch of stuff I wanted to connect with him about. The Carlos Santana signing from over the weekend, what he makes of the Bally Sports North news that the Twins will be back on Bally Sports North for a year. Phil and I have both been covering that story for quite a while, and he has some good insights into that, so he and I will get into that. And he had an interesting story over the weekend on the Pohlad family and kind of their dedication to keeping this team under family ownership for a long time, kind of spurred, I would believe, by the decision of the Orioles ownership to put that team up for sale. So lots of stuff with Phil, with baseball right around the corner. He mentioned on the show 1 week until pitchers and catchers report. That is amazing to think that is so soon. Surely probably a few more marginal moves for the Twins to make before the season starts, but we will talk about the ones they have already made and maybe some of what is yet to come. Got some interesting Super Bowl field condition stuff towards the end of the show, as well as a stray thought about Creed. First, though, what I miss. Let's start with the NFL draft. I think maybe Vikings fans and media included have been focusing on the wrong thing when it comes to quarterbacks with the Vikings. We've been locked in a little bit too much on that number 11 pick for the Vikings. Like what could fall to them at 11? Can they move up at 11 from 11 to get what they want as far as one of those top three quarterbacks, right? You got Caleb Williams, you got Drake May, and you got Jaden Daniels. All three of those guys probably not going to be there at number 11. Certainly not Caleb Williams, almost certainly not Drake May. Jaden Daniels has kind of moved around a little bit, but you see him as high as number 3. And those top 3 teams, like I've talked about on this show before, all of them need quarterbacks. Those top 3 teams picking in the draft, the Bears, the Commanders, and the Patriots. That could be 1, 2, 3 with quarterbacks, especially if each of them identifies the one that they like the best. So in that case, Vikings moving from 11, A, it would take a ton of draft capital to get up into that top 3, and B, if all 3 of those teams are quarterback needy teams, why would they trade out of those spots? It just doesn't make sense. So the Vikings are going to find themselves in a very daunting position if they're trying to trade up to get one of those 3. However, I think we've been thinking about the next tier of quarterbacks maybe a little bit wrong. Seeing a lot of talent evaluators talk about what came out of the Senior Bowl. I don't think J.J. McCarthy was there, obviously, because he's younger than that, but you get guys like Bo Nix, guys like Michael Penix Jr., guys who are sometimes seen on the end of the first round, middle of the first round on certain draft boards, but guys that the Vikings could more realistically be targeting, not at number 11 and not even necessarily after a trade down at number 11, but with their second round pick at number 42. In fact, ESPN's most recent mock draft has the Vikings taking Penix out of Washington with that number 42 pick in the second round. And more interestingly is their look at the Senior Bowl, kind of what the scouts were seeing at the recently completed Senior Bowl, what they think of both Nix and Penix out of the Senior Bowl. Kind of looking at Nix saying he bottom third of round 1 is his earliest predicted draft range, but likely latest predicted draft range early round 3, most likely draft range early to middle of round 2, which is exactly where the Vikings are picking. So Bo Nix, the Oregon quarterback who threw 74 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in the last 2 years, and is a pretty good mobile quarterback as well. He could be sitting right there at 42 when the Vikings pick. Now, there are some issues with him at the Senior Bowl. They didn't love the way he threw the ball downfield, which is a little bit disappointing. But he could be sitting right there. Same with Penix Jr. Questions about his durability. He had a whole bunch of seasons where he missed time with injury in college. The last 2, he was healthy at Washington, put up huge numbers, 67 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, took Washington all the way to the championship game this year before they lost to Michigan. They see him most likely as a day 2 pick. Day 2 pick means second and third round. So definitely could see Penix being there when the Vikings pick at number 42 in the second round. Like I said, he's mocked there by a couple people lately. So just takes one team, of course, for one of those guys to jump into the first round. You've also got McCarthy, like I talked about, who's probably thought of somewhere in the middle between Penix, Nix, and that top three, but he could be in play if they liked him. Bigger picture is this. I feel like we've been lumping all these quarterbacks into the first round, thinking about them as first-round guys, when really, after you get past a few quarterback-needy teams, people aren't going to necessarily reach into that first round to take guys if they don't have a first-round grade on them. So someone could be there at 42. You could rethink the Vikings strategy as this. Maybe they're going to re-sign Cousins, but maybe not. Maybe they'll get a bridge quarterback. They're going to have something. They're going to have some sort of plan going into the draft, because free agency will play out, a month, 6 weeks before the draft. They're going to have some kind of notion going in that they can add somebody there. But they could still, at that point, whether they have Cousins or not, draft someone in the second round. A guy like Michael Penix could be there in the second round. We were thinking, man, is he going to be available at 11? Then you've seen him a little bit more. You've seen the evaluations. You've seen, okay, maybe he's not quite that caliber. Maybe he's going to fall to that second round, maybe even that third round. Who knows? Although the Vikings don't have a third round pick this year. Maybe a guy like Bo Nix is someone they like that they could take in the second round. We will see. The upshot is that we're probably thinking about this a little bit wrong based on where they're drafting, what their needs are, and what other teams might do. Very unlikely, I think, at this point that they could move into that top three or get one of those top three guys, even if one of them fell a little bit. A lot more likely that they could even maybe get one of those next tier guys at 42. Maybe then you use 11 on a great defensive end, an edge rusher for your defense. Maybe you trade down and get a couple picks out of it. Who knows what you do? But if you start to think about it that way, that you could maybe get your guy at 42, not have to spend that pick at 11 on a quarterback, then their draft starts to make a little bit more sense. Then you start to think about, hey, they could fill a few more holes and still come away with their quarterback than you might otherwise think.
Grand Casino would like to take a moment and salute the true football fan. The passion, the hope, the anticipation, that incomparable feeling of winning. Grand Casino would also like to take a moment to remind you that you can find all that anticipation, thrill, and winning at Grand Casino. Grand Casino, let your story begin.
Let's talk Twins with Phil Miller, Star Tribune beat writer. Got a bunch of things I want to catch up on with you, Phil. First off, how you doing?
Doing great, Mike. When this airs, we're a week from pitchers and catchers.
That's great. That's got it sneaks up on you. Maybe it doesn't sneak up as much this year because it's been so mild in Minnesota. Maybe helps people think baseball a little bit sooner. But the Twins, Phil, have we had kind of a quiet December, but things have picked up. I talked to our colleague Bobby Nightingale last week about the Jorge Polanco trade. More recently, they've added a few kind of fringe pitchers, but the bigger move being signing Carlos Santana in free agency. How much do you think he plays next year, given kind of how much he's played in the course of his career, which is pretty much an everyday player, but getting older, hits lefties better than righties, even as a switch hitter? What do you think his playing time looks like when he comes here?
Yeah, he's bounced around for a few years now, like 4 or 5 years since he was in Cleveland. And you think, well, that's a guy, well, in the sense of the Twins, he is a guy just looking for a contract and someone will pay him. And $5 million is cheap for somebody with his history. So it makes you think, boy, he must be right at the end. And then you look it up. Excuse me. He had 23 home runs last year.
Yeah.
That would have led the Twins.
I didn't realize that. Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, not many people recall. Maybe Michael A. Taylor led the Twins in homers last year. So he still has a skill that is useful. He was a finalist for the Gold Glove in the National League at first base. He's a more useful player than perhaps I realized when I started digging into the signing. It makes a lot of sense. He was inexpensive, $5 million. Basically, they used the money that they got, part of the money that they got from the Mariners in the Polanco trade to sign him. He's a first baseman, DH, gives them insurance about with Alex Kirilloff's shoulder. He was the one guy, while everybody at Twins Fest said, going great, healing fine, getting ready. He's the one guy who said, well, I'm hoping to be ready maybe by the end of February, hopefully by the time the first games begin, which is not ready to go on day one. And I think maybe it's a little insurance for playing the base. He's also kind of he fills the Donovan Solano role of occasional right-handed bat in and out of the lineup. So I think he is a more valuable player than maybe you suspect. I've been telling people, if you squint really hard, maybe you can see Nelson Cruz in there.
Yeah.
And he was the same age when he was acquired for twice the money. I'm not saying that Carlos Santana can become the team's force the way Nelson did for a couple of years, but it makes a lot of sense. A switch hitter, which Polanco was their switch hitting bat. So I would suspect that he plays more than 100 games. That would be my guess. I don't know. He's 38, so we'll see how much rest he needs, how the daily grind affects him now. But I think it is a good, cheap pickup for a team that needed to pump up the offense a little bit more.
Yeah, the salary says part-time player, or not everyday player, but the history with him suggests he could be at least. And like I said, he hits lefties better than righties. He's not embarrassing from the other side of the plate, but you do have that piece to him where if you wind up in a platoon with him and him and Kirilloff more or less at first base, but he does still DH some in those other games when Kirilloff is also playing first base, so against right-handed starters. You could see him playing 110, 120 games maybe, and you can see the lineup looking pretty good. I think Bobby did something the other day kind of looking at projected lineups now that he's here and had him kind of in both lineups against righties and lefties. And in either case, the lineups look pretty good this year, I would say.
Yeah, you got to remember they led the league in home runs last year. They were in the top 5 or 6 in scoring. So they lose Jorge Polanco, who actually was only a part-time player due to his couple of injuries. So, and they've lost Michael A. Taylor, their home run
champ.
Home run champion. That's you don't think of him as Killer Brew, but he had a good year.
Did you have him on your bingo card, by the way? Twins lead the league in home runs. Michael A. Taylor leads the team in home runs. Did you have that on your bingo card?
It was no. That you could have made some money at one of the many future sports books around here, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, he does round out the lineup nicely. He in Cleveland, he just destroyed Twins pitching. He is second in history in home run hitting in target field among visiting players. So I think it's a really good risk. It's similar to the risk they took last year with Joey Gallo, and it's half the price. And certainly, you hope that it works out better than it did for Joey. But it's a signing that makes a lot of sense, and that you can cut bait pretty easily if it turns out he's more 38 years old than you thought.
Speaking of more 38 than you thought, all these guys aren't 38, but it seems like they've added a lot of veteran relief pitchers lately too. Not a lot of high leverage moves, but they got one in the Polanco trade. They've added a couple more here in pickups in the last few days. This is kind of add a bunch of arms to the bullpen and see how this all shakes out in the spring kind of strategy at this point.
The guys they've added, suddenly Brock Stewart looks like one of the young guys in the bullpen. But this is something they do every year. They bring in older arms. They, with the Twins and their development department, they always have a feeling that they found something that they can exploit. They change guys' pitch mixes and emphasize different pitches, teach them a new one. So it's kind of knowing what they're getting here, and you take a bunch of them and you weed them out. One concern I do have is that they're depending on Caleb Thielbar to be their left-handed specialist, which he has shown he can do in the last few years. He's 37 now, and you have to pay attention to that. And Giovanni Moran, their other left-hander, it was not so great last year, and it turns out he had an injury. And we'll see if he can bounce back. I do wonder if they're going to have to search for another left-hander at some point. But with the guys they brought in, Jay Jackson and Topa and Duarte, they have, I'm sure, what they think is the makings of a good enough bullpen with with Stewart and Duran for the back end. So, and Griffin Jack's course. So, those are guys that don't have to, they don't have to be Mariano Rivera to be useful around here. And if it turns out they're not, you can swap them out. So, I wouldn't buy any of these guys' jerseys, but you might be surprised at the how often you see someone play. And
you will be seeing them on Bally Sports North next this coming season. The Twins re-upping for a year that looked, I think if we kind of read the tea leaves over the last few weeks, that looked like the most logical conclusion after kind of where we were seeing things headed. My surprise in, what you told me, what you reported, is that there doesn't seem to be a direct-to-consumer component to any of this, where there's not going to be any kind of standalone streaming element to this in 2024, which seemed to be something they really wanted and ultimately will get at some point, maybe as early as 2025. But that piece of it, how did we get this done with that not being part of it, do you think, or at least close to done? This is not finalized until Friday.
It's not, but it's a disappointment for the fans. It's a disappointment for the team. And they were pretty vocal about that as our number one priority in all this. I think everybody got caught by surprise when it turns out that Diamond Sports Group and the Bally Networks are suddenly not going out of business, and they hope to reemerge from bankruptcy and continue their contracts with more than a third of the league. So you kind of had to shift gears, and the Twins, I think, were fairly ready to give their streaming rights to MLB and the MLB TV app and let fans use that. In negotiating a one-year extension with Bally wanted those streaming rights, and so they weren't able to reach an agreement, but Bally did get them to agree not to put the streaming rights elsewhere. So it's just delaying it by a year, and that, if it's a good year for the Twins, there are going to be a lot of fans unhappy that they can't watch the games without, subscribing to cable or satellite or a streaming provider that carries it as part of a bundle. It is a shame, but I think I have a hunch that Major League Baseball is kind of behind blocking any chance to go on your own with that. Rob Manfred in June, made it clear that he wants MLB TV to be a go-to app for baseball fans, where you could buy one game, one team's games, 1 month of games, or every game that's being played. So you got to get teams to become part of that. I think the Twins are ready to do that, and now it looks like it's put off by a year, which isn't going to make fans happy. And I know the Twins probably aren't very happy about it either.
The other element of this is the financial component. We've known probably for a while that they weren't going to get, $55 million. That was about what they got last season in their last year of the contract with Diamond Sports to be on Bally Sports North. They had, it was contentious during the year. They didn't get paid right away, but eventually they got paid in full. How much less do you think they're going to get this year, and will we ever know exactly how much? Because they were good at keeping that a secret for a long time until it came out in the courtroom. Do you think that'll have to be part of this finalized agreement that we hear about Friday when they clear it with the bankruptcy judge? Or do you think we're going to kind of be guessing at how much they actually did get and how much this did affect payroll this year?
I do suspect it comes out at some point because the debtors have to approve it, and all parties have to approve it, and I think it will be part of the court record. But how much they get is going to be interesting. The Guardians and the Rangers are in a similar boat to the Twins in that Bally tried to drop them last year, missed payments, and was trying to terminate the contracts. The Twins, Guardians, and Rangers took them to court and forced them to pay what they owed in full. Now, the difference is the Twins contract expired at the end of the year. Now they have agreed to one more year on Bally, and so have the Rangers and Guardians. And it's been reported that the Rangers and Guardians are taking cuts of roughly 15%. In what they were owed, and in the Rangers case, they were owed more than $100 million a year, so it's quite a bit more. Bally was not losing a lot of money on the Twins. That came out in court. It was the Padres and Diamondbacks that were loss leaders, as it were. So I think they can still make money or break even with perhaps a similar cut. I will be interested to see what the Twins and Bally agreed on. If it is the same 15% cut that the other two teams in the same boat took, that still provides the Twins about $46 million. It's not 54, but it's not zero, which was the fear if they didn't have a broadcasting partner. So where they go, how much they can make going forward, I think every team in the market is going to make less money because the cable and satellite process where you are paid whether you by subscribers, whether they watch it or not, is kind of going away. But if it's just a $10 million cut, not even that, that's I think that eases the financial tension that the Twins are looking at on their balance sheet.
And obviously we don't know what it'll be in 2025, 2026, 2027. You can't imagine the number keeps getting bigger and bigger necessarily. But if I'm a Twins fan and we do find out that, the difference was only $9 million in what they made last year versus, this year on their TV deal, I'm going to be kind of annoyed that the offseason narrative included, hey, we can't spend too much because in part we don't know how much TV money we're going to get. Maybe they didn't know how much, but I would be kind of annoyed if the payroll was cut by like $30 million, but the TV revenue only went down $9 million. Do you think would that be a fair thing for a Twins fan to be annoyed about in the end or not?
Well, annoyed, frustrated, certainly. You have to remember that 6 weeks ago, we thought Bally's was going out of business and
Yes.
that the Twins were going to be produced by MLB and that they were just going to go begging for space on cable and satellite systems while mostly selling direct to consumer. Now, Bally's itself estimates that direct to consumer apps might be quite popular, even at somewhat lower price point, but they could make in the neighborhood of what they're making now. If they can, if you can sell it to fans for $1 a game, or during the summer, if you only charge when you're playing in the summer months, you might find a lot of people signing up for $30 a month, $25 a month, and you can make a lot of that money back. It would be annoying that they didn't spend to the ceilings that they have had the last few years. But, it really was up in the air until a couple of weeks ago what they were going to get, and maybe this sets them up to acquire a frontline starting pitcher at the trade deadline.
We'll see, and we still don't know. Yes, and we still don't know exactly how much they're going to get. Things like that, those details, if they come out, will probably be later this week or beyond that. Phil, final thing, you had an interesting story the other day about the Pohlad family, the ownership group of the Twins for about the last, 40 years now.
40 years.
Kind of in the context of the Orioles and that sale. What did you make of what you heard from the Pohlad family basically saying, no, we like this. We want to be in this business for a long time and have this team for a long time?
A decade ago, after Target Field opened, there were a lot of rumors around town that now that the ballpark had increased the team's value by quite a bit, which I'm sure it did, and that the Pohlads would look to cash out and make a lot of money. And, one of Carl Pohlad's sons is a movie producer, and a third of a sale of the team would produce a lot of movies. But their new controlling owner, Joe Pohlad, who was the son of Bob Pohlad, another one of Carl Pohlad's sons, wants to run the business, and the family seems to be happy with him running the business. And he talked about, the family comes to games. It's how we get together. It makes us part of the community, which we very much want to be. And he made a pretty strong case that, they've got real estate and car dealerships and other interests. They don't need to sell the team. That he even hinted, I didn't put it in the story, but he said, now that his generation is beginning to have kids, he could see it going to the fourth generation, maybe the fifth generation. It is remarkable that the Twins have been owned by the family for 40 years now. That's basically twice as long as Calvin Griffith owned the Twins.
Yeah.
Their teams are worth a lot more than they used to. We saw the Orioles are going for $1.75 billion. I would think that the Pohlads could get somewhere in that neighborhood if they put the team up for sale. But I know there's a lot of joking about the cheap Pohlads around town, and you don't have to be happy with their ownership, but it is stable ownership. There are some bad owners, and maybe if they realize that the team, they don't need the team's income as a family, which they don't. Maybe they will invest a little more. This owner, I will say, far more than Jim Pohlad for the last decade and a half, seems like a bigger baseball fan. He is more he was behind the rebrand. He was behind the new uniforms. He's excited about the new City Connect uniform that's coming out this year. It does seem like he wants to do this. The family wants to do this. And so they are, I think they are the owners of the franchise for a long time into the future. Maybe they can get Sonny Gray at the deadline. How about that? Oh, they're going to miss Sonny Gray. I think a lot of people around the Twins are going to miss Sonny Gray. Yeah, he was a good one for him last year. He was a good talker too. He was a good talker, and I feel like a lot of his wisdom maybe has rubbed off already on Pablo Lopez, who seems plenty sharp already. Yeah. But Pablo kind of, inherits that kind of sage of the rotation now role, doesn't he? He really does. He's got quite a bit less experience than Sonny, but he definitely sees himself as a leader of the pitching staff, a leader in the clubhouse. And they definitely need one. And if he pitches like Sonny Gray did last year, which he almost did by himself last year, that will be really big for the Twins. Absolutely. Phil, appreciate it. Great perspectives on a multitude of subjects. Enjoy the sunny Florida weather, hopefully sunny, and I'll probably talk to you next time down at spring training. All right, Mike. We look forward to it. Thanks.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go checking. Insured by NCUA.
Good stuff from Phil, and here's maybe where perception isn't really meeting reality with the Twins. Phil just told you the Twins led the league in home runs last year. By the end of the year, they were up there in runs scored. They were better than average on offense. Email from Paul, reader/listener, says, I'm a big Twins fan, but it looks like a very long season coming up. First Arise, now Polanco. No one on this team can hit anyway. That was the perception for the first half of the year last year. The offense was actually a lot better the second half of the year. And that's only half the year, I get it, but they have the makings of a decent offense this year, maybe more than decent, if they stay healthy. You remember, they didn't get a whole lot from Royce Lewis in terms of durability last year. Byron Buxton had a subpar season. Carlos Correa had a subpar season. Like those should be your three best hitters probably in a given year, or at least three of your best hitters. If they are all on the field for a certain amount of time, or at least 2 out of the 3 of them have normal seasons with normal durability, that offense will automatically be better. Polanco's a good hitter, I get that. Carlos Santana will probably more or less replace the production you got from Jorge Polanco. I think they're going to be pretty good on offense. I'm more worried about the pitching than I am the offense this season, but we will see. I just wanted to point out that is where the perception and the reality are maybe different about this team right now.
Time to check my social media, yeah. To see who loves me online. Hashtag blessed life.
It is time to check my social media. Really good exchange the other day with a listener, reader, who pointed out to me, I tweeted something about Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers complaining about their practice field before the Super Bowl this year. They're practicing out at UNLV. They brought in some sod on top of on top of what's normally a turf field because they're going to be playing on grass in the Super Bowl, I do believe. They're complaining about how it's too soft, that they don't think it's a good field, things like that. And I tweeted something like, Kyle Shanahan looks like the kind of guy who would complain about the field. I don't even know exactly what that means, but the 49ers maybe have had some petty grievances over the years, things like that. They're just looking for an edge, looking for a way to complain. Well, I got a response from a listener, a reader. Larry says, this brings back memories of Bud Grant complaining about either the practice field or the locker room facilities at Super Bowl VIII in Houston. And I didn't really remember this. I didn't really know about this. I went back and looked. He is absolutely right. Now, my 2 primary sources on this are a Sid Hartman column, late great Sid Hartman column from about 8 years ago when he was reminiscing about all the Super Bowls when it was Super Bowl 50. And a Wikipedia article referencing a book on all of the Super Bowls. So this is two pretty good primary sources, but I wanted to vet that, let you guys know where I am pulling this information from. Sid absolutely wrote about that. He said, January 13th, 1974. This was before my time. I was not born yet. He said, in Houston, he said the Vikings practiced at a high school. The Dolphins practiced in the Houston Oilers facility before the Super Bowl. Coach Bud Grant was really upset. There were birds flying around the locker room. There were no lockers. The players just hung their stuff up on the nails and hooks. He told reporters it wasn't even fit for a junior high team. The league got mad and for his complaining and fined him $5,000. Wikipedia doesn't mention the fine, but they did say they complained about the practice facilities. It was at Del Mar Stadium. I believe that is a high school stadium. It was about 20 minutes from their hotel. Cramped locker room, no lockers. Most of the shower heads didn't work. No blocking sleds on the field. Direct quote from Bud Grant. I don't think our players have seen anything like this since junior high school. So there you have it. The Vikings complained about it. They ended up losing the game. I don't know if that was why they lost the game. Probably not, but you can go back there and find some complaints way back 50 years ago at the Super Bowl. The Vikings were already making this fashionable to complain about the field and the conditions leading up to it. By the way, the Wikipedia story also noted that there was reports of dissension among the Dolphins arising from owner Joe Robbie's decision to allow married players to bring their wives at the club's expense. The single players were reportedly very angry that they could not bring their girlfriends, mothers, or sisters. I do believe one of the Chiefs players has a girlfriend coming to this game, but I imagine she is probably paying her own way. Let us finish with the cooler. Just had a weird stray thought the other day. I posted it on Twitter. There was a lot of chatter when the Vikings were in the midst of their 5-game winning streak. Kirk Cousins started this whole thing with Creed, blasting Creed in the locker room. Joshua Dobbs continued it. He even used Creed on one of his, I think it was a TikTok or an Instagram post about after his first win, second win, whatever it was. Vikings had a 5-game winning streak. Everybody was like, Creed is saving the season. Nobody blamed Creed when the Vikings lost 6 of their last 7 games and the season went sideways. I want to know, should we be putting a little bit more of this on Creed? Should we be blaming them for how the season finished up if we were so eager to give them credit for the 5-game winning streak? I say it's a convenient place to put blame, better than trying to blame the quarterback carousel or the defense that got worse, and maybe Kevin O'Connell, how he handled the offense down the stretch. Let's put it on Creed. Great follow-up tweet, by the way, from John on Twitter says, "Is this how you remind me?" Yes, way to work the Creed lyrics into the pain of the end of the season. That'll do it for me today. I think there's going to be some Minnesota United soccer talk on Wednesday's show. Interesting dynamic with that team as they prepare to play in just a few weeks. I'm hoping to have wide receiver Jordan Addison from the Vikings on a show later this week as well, so stick around for that later this week. Until then, have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'm Michael Rand, back at it again tomorrow.